Welcome in to Kick in the Rear podcast, episode 23. My name is Joe Yarshin, and today on the podcast, I'm going to be reviewing Your Next 5 Moves, Master the Art of Business Strategy by Patrick Bet-David. Patrick Bet-David was a immigrant from war-torn Iran. He founded his own financial services firm, raised tens of millions of dollars, created Valuetainment, the leading YouTube channel for entrepreneurs. He has interviewed several high-profile individuals such as Kevin Hart, Kobe Bryant, President George W. Bush, and other luminaries. His social media content has been viewed over 1 billion times. He never obtained a college degree, and he went from the Army to selling health club memberships. And at age 30, he founded PHP, a financial services agency. Really incredible guy. I got this book recommendation from a friend of mine. Shout out to Chris Jordan. So without further ado, let's get into it. In each chapter, Patrick has a quote at the beginning, and then each move consists of a few chapters. So in chapter 1, he says, "Who do you want to be?" This quote here is from Ray Dalio, author of Principles, Life and Work, and Investor. It says, "I believe that having questions is better than having answers because it leads to more learning. After all, isn't the point of learning to help you get what you want? Don't you have to start with what you want and figure out what you have to learn in order to get it?" So right away in chapter 1, answer questions to reveal your deepest desire, make pain your fuel. He discusses how to use your haters and doubters to drive you. And then he discusses the different types of roles and which one would suit you best. So he explains what an inventor is, an entrepreneur, an intrapreneur, CEO, founder, support team, sales, influencer, and a solopreneur. Embody who you want to be by living your future truth. Live in the present as if your future truth has already become a reality. He says, use your heroes and visuals to remind yourself who you want to be. He talks about some of his heroes, and he has a portrait in his office of all the different people that he aspires to be like in different aspects of his business. So he has a portrait of himself with JFK, Abraham Lincoln, Albert Einstein, Milton Friedman, Tupac, Dr. Martin Luther King, and others. So kind of a cool visual aid. He gives himself inspiration in his office. He then, in chapter 2, study the most important product, you. So quote here by Pindar, ancient Greek poet. He says, "Become who you are by learning who you are." So again, self-discovery is really important in the first of 5 moves. He says, align your career with your true self. Inquiry leads to acceptance, which leads to power. 4 areas that drive you. So the 4 areas he discusses here are advancement, individuality, madness, and purpose. Graduate to your next why. So discovering your purpose, freedom, status, and survival, the different 4 levels of why. Level 1 is survival. Everyone has a job to make money. He's focused on paying his bills. Some people stop here, he says. Level 2 is status. Level 3 is freedom, and 4 is purpose. So he discusses personal identity audit. The personal identity audit is a comprehensive list of questions that drive who and why you do what you do. It's at the end of the book, so you can review that. But it's very detailed, and each question reveals part of your psychological truth. The benefits of self-discovery and conducting a personal audit gives you awareness, realizes problems that can be fixed, cracking limiting beliefs, spotting patterns. And then he talks about study your blind spots by actively looking for them. Knowing yourself is an effortful process and rarely an epiphany. In chapter 3, he discusses your path to creating wealth, going down the path of an intrapreneur versus an entrepreneur. So Ayn Rand has a quote here. Chapter 3, money is only a tool. It will take you wherever you wish, but it will not replace you as the driver. So he says, take control by climbing your own ladder. 59.1 billion reasons to be an entrepreneur. 5 qualities of a successful entrepreneur. How companies breed entrepreneurs. And traits of companies that attract entrepreneurs. He says, don't judge an entrepreneur by the final product. Find your blue ocean. So he talks about a story there. So to summarize, move one. Who do you want to be, whether it's in solitude, talking to a mentor, using the questions discussed in the first chapter, set aside time to get clear on who you want to be. And 2, study the most important product. You don't wait for a crisis to look for clues about the most important person. Again, you make time now to inspect yourself. 3 is your path to creating wealth, entrepreneur. So finding the path that allows you to use your unique talents with the best odds for the highest possible return. So whether you're an entrepreneur, be strategic about how you're going to build your wealth. So in move number 2, master the ability to reason. It starts with chapter 4, the incredible power of processing issues. So the quote here by Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius from Meditations, he says, you have to control over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength. On page 59, the most important trait to process effectively is taking responsibility. 3 approaches to dealing with an issue. He talks about the great ones own their own role, processing steps to take when someone ticks you off or makes you mad, how to deal with a crisis, 10 types of crises, and then embrace math and use investment time return. He uses this concept of investment time return in his own company, and he talks about this throughout the book. But basically, investment is how much time will it cost or save us, or how much will it cost or save us? Time, how much time will it take us and save us? And then R for return is calculate the return on money and time involved in the decision. Great processors rarely repeat their mistakes, he says. The 8 traits of a great processor, he discusses those on page 69. On page 70, expert processors look forward to confronting issues. They treat them like a game. And that completes the end of that chapter. In chapter 5, how to solve for X, a methodology for effective decision making. So there's a longer quote here by General George Patton. Says, in 40 hours, I shall be in battle with little information, and on the spur of the moment, we will have to make the most momentous decisions. But I believe that one's spirit enlarges with responsibility, and that with God's help, I shall make them and make them right. It seems that my whole life has been pointed to this moment. When this job is done, I presume I will be pointed to the next step in the ladder of destiny. If I do my full duty, the rest will take care of itself. Long quote there, but not too bad. Get to the source by solving for X. So he provides a worksheet on this. Solve for X worksheets on page 77. You can see the different table breakdown there. It's really nice because it breaks it down by investigating, solving, and implementing. And then processing when your business is on the line. Again, he gives an example of the Solve for X worksheet. He puts an example issue in there and then breaks it down in each quadrant and category. On page 81, identifying the real issue and the deepest why. And then he discusses 5 questions to ask to identify the real issue, going pro at playing offense and defense. Doing the math is more art than science. And then that concludes that chapter. So to summarize move 2, he says the incredible power of processing issues. Moving forward, take 100% responsibility for anything that doesn't work out. How to solve for X. Number 2, he says share the Solve for X methodology with your leadership team. Use it to process 3 problems you're currently facing. And then move 3 is master the building the right team. In chapter 6, the myth of the solopreneur, how to build your team. Quote here by Reid Hoffman. He says, no matter how brilliant your mind or strategy, if you're playing a solo game, you'll always lose out to a team. So what benefits program do you offer? Questions that people will ask and you must answer when they're deciding to work for you. Everyone needs a consigliere, which reminds me of the quote from Dodgeball. Michelle, my consigliere. If you're a fan of that movie, I always find that line funny. Everyone needs a consigliere, finding trusted advisors. A trusted advisor, keep Donnie Brasco out of your business. So he talks about a really cool story about Donnie Brasco. 5 questions you must ask before making any big hire. On page 99, give me a piece of it, granting equity to build a team. Don't give up on the first date, how to create golden handcuffs, what you must recognize in order to retain talent, communicate your expectations clearly, early and often, fire gently, again, fire gently. So he talks about 6 techniques for becoming an effective terminator. In chapter 7, create a principle-based culture. So Sheryl Sandberg, COO of Facebook and founder of leanin.org, says, leadership is about making others better as a result of your presence and making sure that impact lasts in your absence. So he discusses about building the principles, what we stand for as a family, what we don't tolerate, his core values, prove what you stand for. He talks about never be afraid of the truth, establish a company code, his business principles, create a replacement game plan for people you're going to replace, 6 strategies for replacement and skill transfer. He talks about how friction can be a good thing, talk behind people's backs in a good way. And then that concludes that chapter. In chapter 8, trust equals speed, the power of reliability. Quotes my favorite athlete of all time, Tom Brady. He says, the more you know each other, the more you know what each other's thinking. The faster you can accelerate the trust and confidence in one another when you get on the field. So he talks about speed, fuel, and pilot. He talks about asking questions that go below the surface. Trust is a pendulum, 4 levels of trust. Learn each individual's love language. Talks about marriage in there a little bit, which is cool. The 9 love languages of entrepreneurs. So he breaks all that down in the next tail end of that chapter. So to summarize, move 3, mastering building the right team, how to build your team, create principle-based culture, and the power of reliability, which is trust and speed. Move number 4, he talks about master strategy to scale. Chapter 9, scaling for exponential growth. He quotes Alexander the Great, says, quote, I am not afraid of an army of lions led by a sheep. I am afraid of an army of sheep led by a lion. Love that quote. So he discusses the 4 phases of every startup, capitalizing your business, 10 questions to ask before raising money, the strategy quadrant, operating systems, biz development and sales, innovating campaign, leadership development. So to improve your employees' performance, apply pressure to the point of desensitization. Visionary leaders have a reality distortion field. On page 166, set your lions free and empower them to build empires. And then the next page, 7 ways to hold people accountable. He goes into that. That concludes chapter 9. In chapter 10, he discusses make momentum your friend and be prepared for chaos. There's a long quote I won't read by Seth Godin, but it's a blogger, entrepreneur, best-selling author quote that kind of just reiterates the purpose of this chapter. He says, if you overdose on anything, overdose on speed. He discusses the different types of Ferraris and how over the last 50 years, they've increased their speed by about half each year or each decade or 2 decades. 4 ways to accelerate the company, a 7-step system to compress timeframes, plan optimistically and wisely for growth. Regret minimization, vice management. He talks about the 5 deadly sins of entrepreneurs. Very interesting chapter there. And that concludes chapter 10. Chapter 11, Moneyball, designing systems to track your business. So quote Sherlock Holmes, it is a capital mistake to theorize before one has data. So data-driven execution, using data and logic to predict the future, to scale, codify your knowledge so it's transferable. Make your numbers visible in order to identify leaks and trends. Trust numbers, not people. Analyzing data goes beyond solving for X. And if you don't have a system, you have a limited chance for exponential growth. Chapter 12, stay paranoid. The Grandmaster never lets his guard down. He has another quote here by Andy Grove, CEO, chairman of Intel. I won't read that one just because it's a little longer, but he says, every day is urgent, stay alert, stay alive. The better you do, the more vulnerable you are. Staying centered despite uncertainty. And then manage your ego, build alliances, seek wise counsel. That concludes that chapter. So to summarize, move number 4, we're going to master strategy to scale. He says scaling for exponential growth, number 1. Number 2, make momentum your friend and be prepared for chaos. 3, Moneyball, designing your systems to track your businesses. And 4, stay paranoid. The Grandmaster never lets his guard down. Brings us into move number 5, master power plays. So to start off, chapter 13, how to beat Goliath and control the narrative. He quotes Jay-Z. Love this quote. It's a simple, short quote. He says, "I'm not a businessman. I'm a businessman." I love that one. Things to know before facing a Goliath in business, why Goliaths can be beaten, a dozen ways to beat a Goliath, controlling the narrative, being shameless about self-promotion. I took a lot out of this chapter. He says, align your brand with your master vision. 15 different moves you can transform a weekly segment into a channel focused on entrepreneurship. And then turning off the noise, trimming the fat, future truth versus positive affirmations, showing the difference between the two, incremental growth, how much you can bench press. He talks about that a little bit. And then that concludes that chapter. So in chapter 14, he discusses study mobsters, how to sell, negotiate, and influence. He quotes Marlon Brando from the character Don Vito Corleone in The Godfather. He says, I'm going to make him an offer he can't refuse. So a man knows how to prepare. 7 essential steps to prepare for a meeting. The art of a sit down, preparing for a high stakes meeting. He goes into all of those steps. Effective sales are about conviction and a transference of feeling. How to win. Let the other guy think he won. Just a very good chapter there. Quick, short, and sweet. Chapter 15, cultivate your power and stay battle tested. So he quotes Socrates here. He says, if a man is proud of his wealth, he should not be praised until it is known how he employs it. So he says real power is having options, playing the long-term game of power, humility, and service. And then he says the formula for gaining power, shadow who you want to be. So finding good mentors. Leadership is knowing what drives people. Again, the 4 areas that drive people, he discusses advancement, individuality, madness, and purpose. Understand position and lead, but do not try to fix people. So to summarize, move number 5, 1, how to beat Goliath, control the narrative. 2, how to sell, negotiate, and influence. And 3, to cultivate your power and stay battle tested. And then the last chapter, he quotes Richard Branson in his chapter conclusion labeled Checkmate. He says, as someone who didn't finish school, I think it's so important to become a lifelong learner, embrace an endless curiosity about the world. So overall, 10 out of 10, A+ book. I really enjoyed this book. I couldn't put it down. I finished it in like 2 days worth of reading just because I found it very inspired and kind of like spoke to my soul a little bit. Just I felt like a similar mindset when I was reading this, just kind of like to prove it. And just, it was a refreshing read. So I would highly recommend this one. If you like today's book review, please like, share, comment, review. And as always, bippity boppity investment property. Have a Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays. I'm watching the Bucks game on Christmas night. So hope you have a great day. Bye.